live stream's running when you're ready, but it's on for Nice enough.
Okay, I'd like to call to order a Public Safety Committee meeting for Thursday, September 4th. Roll call, please.
Counselor Gibbs,
Here.
Counselor Barbell,
Here.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Counselor Kelly,
Here.
Counselor McFarland,
Here.
Counselor Moore,
Here.
Counselor Brody,
Here.
Okay, item number 1 on the agenda is reports from department representatives and discussion with counselors. I did ask all 3 public safety managers to prepare some information to share, and whoever would like to go first. Chief? So I see the PHA contract did not end up on our agenda, so are we going to see that on next week's?
That's my hope.
Next week?
Yes. I think it's just still in a state of review, and pending that review, we should be able to submit it for your review as well.
Okay,
But what it amounted to was, rather than hacking that contract to pieces, adding an addendum at one of the later points in the contract that just specified certain things and capped at a dollar amount per work performed for the month, just to address the concerns of the officer is not completely attending to all of the PHA services in that contract outside of what the rate of pay is that's being reimbursed.
okay,
So,
all right. And you're working with Mark Hamilton to make sure that this is going to fit the needs of his community?
right, so I mean, that's the conversations that we've had is the services that allow them to remain in compliance with HUD regulations is really the specifics of what the PHA officer is going to provide in terms of contracted services.
Okay,
And we both think that that can be accommodated by the amount of money that's being reimbursed for services rendered.
okay, all right. Does anybody have any questions for Chief Ritter about that contract? I know we've had this up for discussion for a
Right.
bit, so, okay. I also asked Chief Ritter to be ready to discuss overtime for the department. Currently, according to today's overtime report, salary report, police are at 182,000, 266,000 is what you're budgeted, so you're $13,000 away from running out of overtime. So,
Where did you get that figure?
we get the report every week.
Okay, because when I run it in Munis, it's $151,417.82.
Okay, so this is what Richard, or I'm assuming comes from Richard, supplies to us. So-
Okay, I run my report straight out of Munis in the overtime line.
Okay. All right, so what are you saying is your current overtime total spent?
$151,417.82.
Okay. So by that total, you would have 111,000 left? Okay. So if we could get a clarification on the difference between your numbers and what is listed here?
Okay, I don't know. That's how I run the reports when I do them every week.
Okay. So by next week, can we get a clarification on that, do you
Oh,
think?
I'll ask him what this report is that
Okay.
he sends.
Because my largest concern, I mean, everybody here knows how I feel about overtime costs. When I reflect on our conversations that we have ongoing in council about expenditures and budget concerns and so forth, and I see that every year we spend $1 million in overtime, that's a lot of money. And if there are ways within each of these departments to shore up those overtime or eliminate it or reduce it in a way that preserves jobs and other positions, it would seem an important conversation to have between department managers and union leadership and the mayor and those of us who run committees. $1 million is a lot of money, and it could end up saving lots of jobs. So, if you could get a clarification on that, And, Ira, do you have anything you want to
No,
add on
just,
that?
I think it'd be helpful as we go forward with this to get a sense from you, what are the three top contributors to the use of overtime? Whether you're going over or not, is another question, but I'd like to know what are the drivers that you see as the key drivers in the police department that are contributing to overtime? And then are there, as you look at that, are there options that you might be able to put in place that might, controls that might actually impact that? Or is
Sure,
this-
and that's
I think a little bit of information, like a conversation about that would be great.
Well, in the past, when we've looked at overtime reports, Detective Division is the largest driver of overtime. Mayor Reed, I know that in July, you gave us a categorized overtime report. Do you have one for us from August?
I gave you a July and August one, early September, if I recall.
Oh, okay. Did that come in through reports and I
No,
missed it?
I gave the report and then I had a hard copy for you.
Oh,
if
okay,
you
I must
wanted it,
have
but I can
missed
dig it up
that.
Somewhere.
Okay.
It's on my desk, if I can get it for you.
Yeah, that would be really great. So in the past, that's all, when I've looked at overtime reports, that's always been the driver. And I think it's very important that between now and the next public safety meeting we have, that there is a financial plan that is developed, a strategic financial plan that's developed to determine how are you going to keep costs down, to maintain jobs and stability within the city, and more importantly, that we don't dip into fund balance. That's always been our concern. Because this surplus that Richard shared with us last week, you know, that this projected surplus for next year will disappear if we have to dip into that to pay overtime. So that is my concern. Ira, anything you want to add?
When I read it, it seems that they're actually like 13,000 ahead of their overtime, or behind on their overtime, however you want to say.
Well, it says here, it says year to date, $182,000, 266. Oh, you're right. I did read that wrong. It looked like, I thought I was reading that as a shortage. But, well, at any rate, that's still a concern for me. Okay.
If I could just add one
Sure.
thing. So I went to get last year's number because I track it every week. So for the point we were at last year, this week, we had spent $235,309.84 in overtime. So in terms of what we are doing now in trying to strategize and making sure that every penny we spend on overtime is for essential operations. I mean, that does reflect that we are doing every bit of what we can to make sure that all of our overtime is for essential operations.
I'm sure you are. But you know what my concern is.
I do, I
And it's,
felt-
and it's a concern of the whole council.
No, I completely appreciate that. But I just wanted to show, I mean, we are trying.
Anything else that you wanted to report out?
Just the other thing that you had asked about with the nuisance wildlife contract. I haven't heard anything new on that yet, still waiting to hear back from Noah.
Okay.
But I'll update you all when I do.
Okay, maybe could you update the council, because I'm sure they don't know what you're talking about.
So about a month ago, we received a suspension notice from an insurance company that has the insurance for Noah Phillips, the nuisance wildlife contractor. It came out of the blue, but it was for lack of payment, so we attempted to reach out to him. We weren't able to get a hold of him. We had to send a letter. It's been kind of a clunky back and forth in trying to determine, does he in fact have insurance coverage at this point? So there may be some contractual breaches that we ultimately have to look into, but still trying to find out what the status of his insurance is at this point.
So if we get complaints, if anybody has a complaint about an animal, a nuisance animal on their property, what should we tell them? Just to contact somebody from the DEC list directly? Okay,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you. Chief Lawless?
Good evening.
How are you?
Not bad. So, you want the same,
Yeah, so again, we'll start with the overtime. You are actually out of overtime now.
right?
And I asked, Ira and I, in our last meeting with you, we asked you to find something in your operations budget to cover this overtime. At this rate, my concern is that you may be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $200,000 over in overtime and nowhere, and that will have to come from general fund to cover it.
If it followed tracked summer rates, yes.
Yeah, so
We're
that
coming
is.
into fall where normally I don't have the coverage issues, so that's gonna be helpful. The separation pay,
Mhm.
we're gonna move that line item number, that's 95,000. So we don't have anybody planning on retiring this year before December 31st. So I can move that over. Hopefully we can continue on with the MOA. That's, would decrease a lot of the in-title overtime. That's the plan. It's at a stall right now,
Mhm.
so I'm gonna keep working on it.
So between now and the next public safety budget, or sorry, public safety meeting, I would, like the same thing I asked Chief Ritter, I would really like to see a financial solution, a plan, so that we do not have to dip into fund balance next year, or for this fund balance going into next year to cover overtime costs, because
Right.
it will zap any projected, extra money that we were talking about last week. And it has to have a solution. So,
I've got a cadet that's gonna be coming out of the academy that's gonna be able to offset some of that also. So
when
he's
will
the
that
last
person be
one,
coming out of academy?
the end of October.
Okay.
Everything with COVID was set off, so I should have had full coverage through the summer.
Mhm.
I did not, because everything went on pause.
Right.
So I was not able to utilize the recruits the way I wanted to, as shift coverage for essential positions that are needed. So, continuing to work on it the best that we can. As long as it all comes into staffing levels too. I've been
Mhm.
down trying to make up positions, so.
Do you have a status on the Safer grant at this point? Any
On the
new,
what?
any new information on the Safer grant?
Nothing yet. We haven't heard anything from the government.
Okay.
So I'm working on that. That's a lot of reimbursable for the overtime also due to COVID
Mhm.
in running the ambulances.
Okay. Do you have any kind of an anticipated idea when FEMA reimbursement could possibly happen? For overtime because of the COVID?
No, I'm not, I have no idea what the federal government's gonna do
Okay.
for that in payment.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So, Chief, she just mentions COVID. Is COVID driving the increase in overtime? Because if I remember correctly, maybe Richard can help me, we raised the overtime budget about $93,000 to match realities for the fire department. Is that correct?
I don't believe so, because the
No.
required budget is still 266,000, and that's the levels that were set by Councilor Gibbs and Councilor.
Ensel, last year?
Last year,
Mhm.
266 apiece for the fire department and for the police department, and they're still the same budget levels. So we haven't increased it at all, no.
Then maybe it was 2 years ago then. I thought we increased it. Well,
Well,
what was
at
the
year
year
end, if we have to balance the budget, we have to find ways to move numbers around within the budget, say, take it out of contingency and put it into fire overtime, just to balance the line. And
Sure.
we do that, but that's not a conscious decision to raise appropriations, that's just balancing the budget to close the numbers at the end of the year.
I guess, what was the year-to-date actual of last year for the fire department's overtime?
I don't have the year-to-date actual last year, but I have the total year last year.
What was the total year?
And the total year last year was
It was over 300,000, I think. 325?
320, I believe.
I think so.
321.
And what was the estimated, you said it was gonna estimated 200,000 over the
Well, we still have the remainder of September, we have October, November, December. I mean, at this trajectory, there may be another $200,000 they're gonna need.
So it won't delay force. What's causing overtime? The increase in overtime from last year? Is it
From last year for this year,
Yeah,
during COVID, I canceled all vacations.
okay.
So what happened is during that time, we had to have full staffing, which meant that anybody that was sick or had a COVID symptom or anything else was not allowed to work due to Department of Health regulations. So that was 3 months, so I had all the accrual times. Those all need to be put in now in this small amount of time, and everybody did in the summertime. So it caused shift short because my shifts weren't at full staff due to past not hiring. So that's where I'm at.
And the cadets that were originally supposed to be in the academy, that got suspended because all academies were shut down because of COVID. And so that added to a stress for him as well. They went back into academy, 3 of them finished, 1 still is left to finish.
Right.
So there were a lot of delays in the plan that we created as a result of COVID. But the math is the math. If we're short the money, we have to have a mathematical solution to it. And so that's what I'm asking the chief to do.
But I have a question. It's, 'cause you said you were short-staffed because of some of the vacation time or leave time that they were
Right.
approved that had to be used during the summer
Right.
period of time. When that occurs and you're operating an ambulance and you're operating a fire department. So I assume the time where you're short-staffed is in the fire officers that are there to be responding. Is that correct?
I don't know if I
Do you
understand.
shut the ambulance down at any point?
Do I shut it down?
Right.
Absolutely not. I'm running, last year was 3,100 calls for service.
But I'm saying if you had to bring in 2 people on overtime, you
It
could
depends
shut-
where their
you could-
seniority
You could
lies.
cease the ambulance, put the 2 people into your staff, and 911 would dispatch to the hospital ambulance to cover the city of Plattsburgh. Is that not correct?
If I was to shut the ambulance down,
I'm talking about this, you said you had a shortage on shift.
shift
And if you-
encompasses everything.
What I'm saying is if you didn't run the ambulance and took those 2 individuals, they would be able to cover that shift. Is that correct?
They would be able to do it if you weren't running the ambulance.
If you weren't running the ambulance, and if you're not running the ambulance, all the calls would go to the hospital, and their ambulance would cover the city of Plattsburgh.
I think you're getting into contractual issues now. And I'm also looking at services.
I'm not saying we're shutting the ambulance down, you're moving your staff, you're moving your staff where you need to move your staff.
If I don't run the ambulance, that is considered a frontline piece of apparatus, and it's spelled out in the CBA.
I don't understand the union position on this. All I'm saying is, so you've got the people there, but they're not in the right spot, so you've got to bring in 2 additional people and pay them time and a half for that shift.
It's not always time and a half, it comes in at straight time, we're FLSA exempt. So they have to work over 106 hours in a 2-week pay period in order to get time and a half, otherwise it's straight time. So that's part of it. I have critical tasks that need to be done for all emergencies, EMS, fire, water, confined space, hazmat. So the critical staffing pieces are there. What call comes in, we cross-staff. 2 people that are on the fire truck, jump on an ambulance and respond. If they're not on the ambulance and a fire call comes in, they jump on the fire truck and go. We play a shell game every day, moving people all over the place. So that's,
So, I'm trying to understand what you just told me, so just bear with me, okay?
the city of Plattsburgh, we cross-staff for all our positions. If you go to larger
But
departments,
it could be you're not running an ambulance if you had to pull them off to go to a fire.
if I pull, then CVPH comes in
CVPH
and takes it over
comes
because
in
we're
and
already
takes
on
it over.
emergency.
Right, just handles those emergencies when.
We
staff
handle
are
what
not
emergency
available.
comes in first.
Okay,
And if we do not have the resources, then we start pulling from outside agencies, which would be CVPH, could be District 3,
yeah, they've always provided like mutual aid and backup when that.
And vice versa, right.
Something comes in, exactly. but it's a contract issue in terms of you not being able to move those staff off the ambulance unless there's a.
For the
fire
full day,
or
yes.
something. Well, I guess you're bringing somebody in for a full day. When you talked about a staff shortage causing the overtime, it's a full day staff shortage, correct?
Depends on the leave. It could be an 8-hour leave, could be a 4-hour leave, could be a 12-hour leave.
I think I'm done. I can't, I just think it's, I don't know if there's some flexibility there that would impact overtime, that's all.
No, it's, one of our issues is there's contractual language as to how many people can be off. And when my shift is not, if the department is not at 36, and there's 2 people allowed off on regular accrued time per shift. If I'm at 8, that puts me at 6. My minimum is 6 right now. So if somebody books sick or somebody is unable to come in, that's overtime. And we're working on going towards 7, as we have talked about before, for critical tasks that need to be done on emergencies.
Okay.
And the way that your trucks operate it's complicated.
Very.
How many people can be on, depending on the size of the truck, their individual responsibilities, the rank of the people who need to be there, the rank of the people who need to be in the house. You've got your safety standards that you have to adhere to. I mean, there are a lot of moving components into what you do. It's taken me almost 2 years to understand it.
Right.
So it's very complicated, so. Anybody else have questions for Chief?
Two things. One, I just want to say that I have a tenant that's not well, and he's had 5 ambulance calls, and everybody's been very polite, very responsive, very caring, very good, and they did a fantastic job.
Excellent.
Second thing was, what is the oath of office? Does every firefighter have to take that, or just yourself?
Myself.
Just you?
Yeah, that was something that we haven't done for a few years prior to my coming in. There used to be one.
Because they talked about it in the code book, and I couldn't find anything about it. All right, that's all. But you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Chief, I just have a question, is your year-to-date actual, in line with the report that we have here? Because I know the police chief was saying his was about 31,000 different.
I'd have to check. I know that what happens sometimes is that the holiday pay will go into the overtime, and Julie from payroll has to pull it out. It's the way that the 2 programs talk to one another. I think she was up to date in August. I'm not sure if she is right now. I don't know if that's been moved out.
Thank you.
No.
Hello?
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Good. Questions about my overtime?
No, not you. So I did email Joe and asked him to kind of update the council on, we passed the local law for the rental registry. From my recollections from our conversations last year, there was a fee schedule that would have to be adopted for that. So my question, and I don't know if you can answer this tonight or, how we go about having this, will that fee schedule need to be created this year? Maybe Dean would need to chime in as well.
Yeah, just by year end, I think we had a plan at April 21st.
Right, so I know it's not gonna be implemented until April, but would the fee schedule have to be created this year?
Not have to be, but the sooner the better to give everyone sufficient time to plan. And it would just be by resolution, not by local law, so it doesn't require the same protocol that you go through for a local law.
Okay. I've never had to do that before. Is that something that Joe would handle on his own? Would he collaborate with us on
Usually you would ask
council?
for recommendations from this department head, and then he'll present to the council, result some discussion, and then eventual action.
Okay. Joe, what kind of time frame do you need in order to come up with an appropriate fee schedule for that, so that we could, probably Ira and I should engage in that conversation with you and before it's presented to council. So what kind of time frame do you need in order to get that moving?
Timeframe, we've established a fee schedule already.
Okay,
I'm not sure it's gonna be what you want, but that's, we worked it backwards based on, having to hire somebody else and have the office go to 40 hours.
okay.
So we came up with a fee schedule that covered that, plus a small additional cost.
Okay. Did you share that with us yet? I don't recall.
Did I share that
Yeah,
with
I
you?
don't recall if you
I have
did.
not shared it with the council. I know some people have talked about it. I may have talked about it with you. I don't think on the council floor, though.
Right, so would you mind sharing that with Ira and me by email and
Yeah,
at least
absolutely, sure.
get us started to look at that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was really the only thing I wanted to talk to you about, unless there's something you want to share with the council.
No, I mean, if you have any questions about the rental registration, I'm happy to try and answer them. I mean, I'll update you on the building permits, where we're at year to date. We're
Okay.
about 50 permits less than we received this time last year, which translates to slightly less than $5,000 received less than last year. So it's not, it's a big number of permits, but the fees received is not a big number.
Okay.
We usually take in about 100,000 in permit fees. We're near 50 right now.
Okay.
Problem was with COVID, you know, the contractors all had to stand down unless it was essential construction. And then when it was lifted, everybody was so busy. Now they're having trouble getting materials. And so there's been a ripple effect.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have questions for Joe? Thank you.
Sure.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to move items 1, 2, and 3 to our regular agenda for this evening. Ira?
Oh, so moved. Sorry. I was looking at what they were. I thought there was another one.
I'll second that.
What?
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yep.
Okay, do we, number 3, I'm sorry? No.
I think there's well, I can bring it up under new business. It's a new way to.
Okay, so, do we have any old business, Ira? Anybody have any old business for public safety? Okay, none? Ira, do you have some new business you want to?
Yes, this is on the zoning board, and it's a resolution, that I should read it, I assume, Dean?
Yeah, unless the council may want to go into executive session to discuss some other potential litigation to have a more candid discussion, unless you just want to move forward with the resolution. It's up to you.
What's the wish of the council here?
We do have the confines of time tonight, because we very much need to target a 5:30 departure date to head over to the county for the annexation hearing.
Let me read it, and if people have concerns, I think we could talk about it in public as well. This is resolved in accordance with the request. Oops, this is starting in the middle of something here. Dean? This was a,
Ira.
don't have the latest one. Okay, it starts the same way, I guess. Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, upon receipt of the revised invoice, the common council determines that the reference fees were proper and necessarily incurred in connection with the review of the pending applications, and hereby approves paying the invoices referenced on the open invoice report dated September 24th, 2020 from Barclay Damon in the amount of $20,000. As you're aware, this is the zoning board's employment of the attorney that we're talking about here. Resolved that the common council authorizes and approves the chairman of the zoning boards of appeals signing of a letter of engagement with Barclay Damon dated April 24th, 2020, and authorize and approves the chairman of the zoning board of appeal to sign a revised letter of engagement dated September 24th, 2020. It's further resolved that the common council terminates the investigation of the chairperson of the zoning board of appeals hiring of a law firm from Buffalo, New York on or about April 24th, 2020 in connection with the Durkee Lot mixed-use development required by the resolution dated September 3rd, 2020, effective immediately, and is further resolved, the city chamberlain shall adjust the 2020 general fund budget by transferring appropriations of $26,000 from contingency to zoning contract services to provide for the unbudgeted legal fees incurred by the zoning board of appeals from April 20 for special counsel services related to their review of the Durkee Street development under city DRI funding project. We have a motion. I'll move that resolution.
I'll second that.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Or Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Okay, well,
I have a question about that.
okay, do you want to enter an executive session to discuss this, or do you just want to have the conversation on the floor?
I don't care, but I heard it was, you said it was, sorry, I haven't seen that, but, you said it was revised, and it was revised upwards? It's not
Revised
increased?
downwards, the rate that was authorized, with the prior letter of engagement was $330 an hour. The current rate, if this is accepted, is $290 an hour.
But you said 20,000, and it wasn't 18.5.
There was a lag time with this invoice, that 18.5 was the invoice, which didn't encapsulate all this time. So there was a retroactive reduction in his bill. The current bill was around 23,000, but it was with this reduction in hourly rate, that's the 20,000 number.
And we're appropriating 26,000, you said?
That's a budget, essentially it's a budget transfer.
26, right, that's the anticipated budget.
That's so the anticipated budget is 6 more thousand.
Well, right, that's a guess.
Because I remember when this came up in April, I objected to it as not being necessary or reasonable. And I noticed that the zoning board's email, it mentions that we may not get it done on May 4th, which was the next meeting, but
Thank you.
they want to get this over with quickly. Obviously, that was 5 months ago, and when I read the invoice, they've been having 5-hour-long meetings, which is what drove the invoice up. So is that 26,000, is that a cap? I haven't seen the.
So there's no cap, and that was part of the discussion, because no one knows how long the ZBA will take, so there was no cap included. There was language indicating that there would be no travel from Buffalo to Plattsburgh, it would all be virtual, so at least wouldn't be travel time. At the ZBA meeting on Monday, they passed a resolution for not take any further action on this project unless and until this matter is resolved to everyone's satisfaction.
So, I know that was my big worry. They hired someone from Buffalo, and it's about a 6-hour trip there and back, so this new engagement.
The engagement letter, there's no absolute, but it includes language saying that there will be a best efforts to not have any travel. And there's no open meeting requirement that council will have to attend in person. So it's, and anecdotally, based on conversations, he indicated he's not traveling to Plattsburgh.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn our public safety meeting.
So moved.
Okay, I'll second that.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 4:50.
We can then begin our work session for tonight's common council meeting. So is there any reports that you'd like to issue, beginning with governance, strategy, and city operations? Councilor Barbell.
No, not at this time.
Councilor Moore for city infrastructure.
I don't have anything.
Councilor Kelly for finance and budget. Nothing, Mayor. Councilor Gibbs for public safety.
Nothing additional. We had our regularly scheduled meeting this evening.
Councilor McFarland for the public library.
No, but I did send out an email, and I would like to meet with Chamberlain Morris and the library director to discuss the library program next year. Perhaps I'd like to get an opening and setting that up.
I believe Beth is working with you on that already.
Okay.
And MLD board president, Councilor.
I don't know what that is.
Any items on the agenda tonight you'd like to begin discussion?
Yes, actually. I would like to have some discussion about the SRT being resubmitted, that, as per my request. Councilor Kelly, I know that you sent out a lengthy document discussing why you oppose it, and I would just like to, since I'm the one that requested this go on the agenda tonight, would like to say a few things. Quality of life projects are the kinds of things that the city really needs to invest in. I fully appreciate the councilors who oppose it on the basis that we've injected a lot of city funds. There's still more to be spent. There are a lot of moving parts with this project, and I also fully appreciate that you investigated whether Public Works could do something similar without bridges for a rough, similar cost. Such a project would require still the back work of drawing up plans, getting a company to, do all that engineering and so forth. And it would be a promise in the future on another council and another mayor. And it would end up being, that would be my fear, that it would end up being just that, a promise for the future with new council and a new mayor, and it would never be delivered. These kinds of projects are the exact kinds of things we need in the city to get people here moving around and improve quality of life. And again, I respect your hard work to bring the tax rate down, but even if we bring tax rates down to the degree that you're looking, if people don't want to be here because it isn't a beautiful city, all of that will be for nothing. There's also the matter of grant money tied into this that would have to be returned. This is a DOT grant, to my understanding, is that correct?
It's a combination of DOT and New York State Parks and Park grants.
So, excuse me, Patrick. So DOT, it's a DOT grant. CHIPS funding comes from DOT, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
We gave back, what was it, a $15,000 grant in the middle of the summer, Patrick? I know you and I have talked about that. We cannot keep giving up grants and grant opportunities, because my fear is that the city of Plattsburgh is going to get a reputation in Albany that we are a black hole. Don't bother, dealing in grant monies with the city of Plattsburgh because it's not going to go anywhere. Grants aren't just money. It's not just a check. You've got grant writers. You've got people in offices working on these. It's just like when I asked Chief Lawless to pursue the SAFER grant with the approval of the council. Those are long, arduous documents. You've got people dedicated to it. We have to be mindful of the ripple effects of something like this being declined, being returned, funds spent, nothing to show for it. This is an opportunity to really improve the quality of life. And if we give back this DOT grant, what's going to happen to future grants that we want for CHIPS funding? We use that CHIPS funding for roads and sidewalks. There are ripple effects to this, and though I fully appreciate your objections, Mike, I do. I think that this is a project we need to see through to the end.
Do you feel the same way about the DRI project, Elizabeth?
We feel the same way about what?
The DRI?
No, I mean, but what do you mean?
Well, that we need to see it to the end.
Absolutely.
And that the loss of $10 million is a critical problem that may endanger our chances for grants in the future.
Absolutely. I said that back in March on the floor, March 12th, before we ended up in pause because of COVID. Mm-hmm. My concern that we needed to see that DRI go into the ground for the exact same reason.
The project that you're speaking of becomes more palatable when we think of people living downtown. With fewer people living downtown, that makes a project like that less useful.
I disagree. I think that the project on its own is valuable, whether or not a DRI project goes in that Durkee Street parking lot. And like I said, this is a quality of life project, and we really should not be turning those away.
I'll just make a comment about living downtown. I don't know the exact number of apartments that exist currently in the downtown area, but my guess is we've got a couple of hundred people that are at least living in apartments in the downtown area. This trail will connect them to a healthy path from the downtown area all the way down to the high school. And then hopefully in the future, to the marina area as phase 3 comes in place on this, with or without prime. You know, I think it will beautify the whole waterfront along the Saranac River. And phase 3 will do the same part for talking about a parking lot with actually no real view of the Saranac River and no real pathway to walk along Saranac River alongside of that parking lot. So, you know, I think it holds, you know, multiple benefits to the city.
I do too. And further, I would like to say, I see on here that there has been money from the sewer fund. I see John Ruff is here. John, would you mind coming to the microphone to discuss how this is going to work? And before you speak, I just would like to also say that this is clearly collaboration between Richard, Matt, John. We've got department managers working together to deliver this project, bring down costs, and this is the kind of leadership and collaboration we need to see in City Hall. So could you explain how this is going to work?
Yeah, just let me start off with, I was listening to the discussion last week about the concerns with the project moving forward, and I was feeling kind of bad about it for two reasons. First of all, the water and sewer operations, from my perspective, stand to gain a lot of benefit from this project moving forward. And the second reason I was feeling bad is we were gaining that benefit without really paying our fair share. We're kind of getting a free ride. So I approached Matt about whether or not water or sewer funds would help this move forward, and we talked about that, and he felt that it would. So I then talked to Rich about whether he felt, and excuse me for putting words in your mouth, and certainly correct me if I mischaracterize our discussions, but we both felt it was an appropriate use of sewer fund money and that the funds are available to do that. Sewer fund's got about, upwards of $10 million in it right now. So when I asked Matt about, what level of support might help the project move forward, he said $270,000 was a number that seemed to be helpful. We looked at how much money was in the sewer fund, and I felt like, yeah, from my perspective, that's a level of support that could be provided without causing big problems in the sewer fund, and it was a number that made sense. So I wanted to touch on a little bit of the rationale behind it and some of the benefits that we gain. Right now, there's a sewer line that runs from the police station under the river and up onto near the old manufactured gas plant site, and then runs along Saranac Street. That's kind of a hydraulic bottleneck. The sewer capacity can't handle wet weather flows, so we have combined sewer overflows at that location. Those are going to become more of a problem as we move forward with EPA and DEC under our CSO long-term control plan. So getting more sewer flow across the river is important, and once we get it over there, being able to convey it to where it needs to go. Right now, there's a sewer line that runs along Saranac Street. The property for the Saranac River Trail will give us the legal ownership of additional property to run a redundant sewer line to increase the sewer flow capacity through there. So that's going to help in the long term with our combined sewer overflows. Reliability is a key. It's the main key when it comes to water and sewer service. And reliability, two big things that support reliability are redundancy and resiliency. So having an ability to run a redundant line gives us extra capacity, and if we got to work on one line, we have a second line that we can use while we're doing that work. Crossing the river is a big deal, especially during emergencies. Right now, if we have a problem down here near the footbridge, the emergency action plan is to run a line across there and either feed water or feed sewer. The two bridges provide a significant amount of resiliency, especially during emergencies. If there's a problem, we can divert sewer flows, we can divert water to make sure we maintain water flow for people to use in their homes, for fire protection. For sewer flows, we've got the ability to pump or provide additional gravity flow if there's other major problems. So we get a lot of benefit from that. What's that?
Begin our council meeting now, 5 o'clock.
Sure.
Begin our council meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you want me to step down for now?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Thank you,
Mayor
John.
Reed,
Present.
Counselor Barbell.
Yeah, here.
Counselor Kelly,
Here.
Counselor Gibbs,
Here.
Counselor Brody,
Here.
Counselor McFarland, Counselor Moore. Here.
I need to thank this community. We've been doing so incredibly well with regard to COVID for quite some time. We do have a little bit of an outbreak in Eatontown that obviously our community health experts are managing very well on our behalf, but I think the public needs to know that the City of Plattsburgh has always taken public health very seriously. As you know, we were the first in the state, maybe the country, to do social distancing on March 12th and the first to wear masks on April 2nd. That's made all the difference. Right now, we've got 1/80th the infection rate per 1,000 people compared to the nation as a whole. That's incredibly good. We're doing better than anybody else in New York State and better than anybody else just about in the entire country. But we're obviously going to have to maintain our vigilance, do the things we're doing, understanding this is balancing some of our individual needs with our collective needs, but I really think we're on exactly the right track in this community, and I just don't want anybody to get discouraged with small outbreaks here and there. They are going to occur, but we'll weather through it. We'll take all the various appropriate precautions, looking around the room, everybody's socially distancing, everybody in this room is wearing a mask. We've been able to do all of our various business right from the very get-go and not preclude the public in any way, including public attendance at every meeting so far, or Zoom, or YouTube, or whatever method necessary to be able to continue to do our business. So it's really gratifying to see all the really incredible work that we've done in the City of Plattsburgh on behalf of the entire county, but we're gonna have to keep it up for some time. I just didn't want anybody at all to be discouraged by some setback somewhere else. These are gonna occur, but we're still doing very, very well. I think that's all I have to add tonight.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on September 17th, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion?
I'll abstain from this vote, because I wasn't here.
You still have the minutes in front of you.
I did read them, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending September 23rd, 2020 in the amount of $456,140.68 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Moore and second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. You've already offered your reports. Are there any additional reports you'd like to offer at this time? Seeing none, resolved, the reports are, as listed, are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Gibbs and second by Councilor Barbell. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passed. No correspondence to the recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the Common Council for the week ending September 25th, 2020 in the amount of $2,672,037.74 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Moore and second by Councilor Gibbs. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. The public needs to know that we'll be having a public hearing with regard to the annexation process on our Ruger Street property at 6 p.m. at 130 Arizona Avenue. This council will be adjourning at 5:30 p.m. to be able to attend that meeting. So what I recommend for public comment is, please, if somebody's made a public comment similar to the one you would have liked to have made, could you please defer if you could? And if we could have reduced time for the public comments, 2 minutes instead of the usual 5 minutes, but we would like to still afford people some opportunity to come and talk, because I know you've come out tonight. I just want to make sure the council has their ability to get to the business that they feel is so important.
Mayor, if anybody's out in the hall too.
Mhm.
If anyone's out in the lobby.
Does anybody like to come forward for public comment?
Also, I have public comments written from Mr. Jeffrey Barker that will be entered into the minutes we received earlier today, and the council received a copy.
Hi, I'm Luke Cyphers from 160 US Oval. I just wanted to thank the council for reconsidering the Saranac River Trail Phase 2 funding. And just wanted to bring up a couple of points. Jesse Filer has been good in getting together some of the benefits of the trail and things that, things like Friends of the Saranac River Trail have done in the past few years to use the trail. We think it will increase use. And I just want to make one more point that I wasn't able to make last week, which is the economic benefits of these things are not just ethereal. They're not just amenities. I just finished an article for Adirondack Life magazine about a real estate boom in the North Country and in the Adirondacks. The number of closed residential sales has just spiked this summer from people moving from dense packed urban areas up here for quality of life primarily. And those kinds of things have ripple effects. One of the things that did not make my story, unfortunately, because of space considerations, was that one of the lagging communities in the Adirondacks was Tupper Lake. They were not getting as many new residents as the area around Keene, as Lake Placid area, as Saranac Lake, which is really booming. And it was because the realtor said of a lack of amenities. I wanted to bring that up. And the final thing is companies relocate to places that have trails. And one example prominent is 2014, New Belgium Brewing, which is centered in Colorado, relocated a massive factory for their East Coast operations to Asheville, North Carolina, largely because of trails. So thanks.
Any other individuals like to please come forward and address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight? Is there anybody in the hall who would like to come and address the council? Seeing none, please continue.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the mayor is hereby authorized to sign a memo of understanding with G&G Fitness Training in a form approved by the Corporation Council to allow for their use of the Oval Fields for their youth football program for the fall of 2020.
Moved by Councilman McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion.
Yeah, I just have my one question. I know we've approved a lot of sports leagues and facilities to use the old field. I just want to make sure that none of these are going to be conflicting with each other and it's been coordinated. I'm sure it has, but I feel like it sure has.
Yes, this individual's camp is only for this weekend, for Saturday and Sunday. Football field they'll use and they'll mark will be separate from the other soccer fields that we currently have the council has approved, such as the YMCA. So there won't be any interference between the two ones.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to know.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Council Barbell?
Yes.
Council Kelly?
Yes.
Council Gibbs?
Yes.
Council Brody?
Yes.
Council McFarland?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes.
Council, since everyone, I was gonna say, since everyone's seen this and it's been publicized, did you want to?
I would like to waive the reading on items number B and C and combine them and move to resolution on both.
Moved by Councilman McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Discussion on the items themselves.
I know time's a bit of a factor, but I would be interested in the rest of what John was saying. I find it interesting.
I don't remember exactly where it was, but I was talking about reliability. So basically the trail and the two bridges provide us opportunity to provide a lot more reliability into the water and sewer operation. So I think it's only fair that we pay something towards the project if that's the council's desire. So $270,000 was the amount mentioned. That's an amount of money that the sewer fund can support without causing any issues. So told Matt, if you want to run with it, go ahead. And here we are.
John, how's the bridges helping with them?
Yeah, if there's an emergency, let's say there's a big water main break, we want to transfer water from one side of the river to the other, we can lay temporary pipe across the bridge. could do the same for sewer. We have a similar arrangement down here with the existing commemoration footbridge, and that's how we deal with that. So, one of the big things is redundancy, and being able to have flexibility too. So this provides us the ability to get back and forth across the river, which is the major impediment to laying temporary piping. In the long run, if there was a need to do something more permanent, we'd have to analyze the bridges and see if additional structural supports were needed. But if that was the case, it would be relatively easy to do and certainly less expensive than directional drilling or building a new bridge from scratch.
Thank you.
The pipes underneath the river now. Imagine if they broke in the middle of winter, it'd be a disaster.
Or a long time ago, yeah. Couldn't tell you, 50 years, 80 years.
They're reaching their age of,
In theory, that's another issue. We don't really know the condition. Sometimes those old pipes last 200 years, sometimes they don't, so it can be a roll of the dice. You just don't know without taking the pipe out of service to do a formal inspection, and without redundancy, there's no way to take the pipe out of service to really check it
how
out.
much of the city is serviced by that pipe, would you say?
What's that? Top of my head. It's hard to say that. There's coming down Ruger, 25%, plus some flow from the town too. So, but it's not an insignificant amount, I can tell you that. And it is one of the bottlenecks, and we're under pressure. And where all of our bottlenecks are is to reduce the frequency of combined sewer overflows and the volume of combined sewer overflows. So it's coming sooner or later. The requirement to provide additional hydraulic capacity there.
So the bridge would be like an ounce of prevention in some ways.
Yeah, and sets us up for a lot of long-term flexibility and reliability.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Well, I want to say I wasn't here last week, I wasn't here the last 2 weeks. I did get a chance to watch the live stream. And I will say that I agree with Mike. I do, and I've stated my problems a lot where, we can't just keep relying on grants to expand our infrastructure to the point where it thins out our ability to maintain it. And I know his list here, I think it's very well done. We have a lot of things that have been neglected for years, decades, and our ability to maintain our current infrastructure should be something that we keep our eyes on. However, I also, as I texted Elizabeth last week, I honestly agree with everything that Mr. Cypress said at the city council meeting last week. And this is a project that I've been following since before I was a councilor. Jesse Filer, I think about a year and a half ago, showed me where these bridges were gonna go and how the trails and this is actually something where if I, as a constituent, I would be calling my city councilor and asking them to support this project. I think it goes well with what the city needs. The city has to stop turning its back on our natural assets, the lake being one of them, and I know we have a committee looking at the LRAP, and the river is the other one, especially the connection with the river. I was very disappointed when we have to put off phase 3 because of the NYSEG remediation. This phase 2, I think, is the crowning achievement of the Saranac River Trail. It's the part that connects them all through our downtown, through where our people are. And it also goes along with our updated comprehensive plan and the zoning laws. Those areas, and I know the mayor brought up that one area is still nice at remediation, and we don't know how it's going to end up in 6 years when it's done. But I think there's always risks, but the potential benefits are there for this. We need recreation. We need to make our city more walkable. It allows us to connect the flats to our downtown in a very walkable way, which hopefully will allow the flats to be revived in the future, or at least allow the opportunity to do it. So I do know that paying for it is a problem, and I do know that in the time of COVID, that rising costs, and we don't know what the future will bring, but I do think that this project is worthwhile enough to take that risk I look forward to it. I do think we want our city to become more vibrant, more walkable, along with needing more housing in our city. This is one of those things that I think is absolutely necessary.
Actually, I'd like to add that the one thing I've learned from this exercise is that, well, I compiled a list of all of the city facilities that, and their current state of repair. And we have, 15 or so facilities that are in desperate need of repair and have, in some cases, have been closed. And this project will end up with the same fate. Not today, not in a decade, but maybe in 2 decades. It'll end up being closed because it can't be used anymore because it's not safe. So what I'd really like for the council to do, if you're gonna pass this, go ahead, but in the future, let's please try to develop some sort of routine maintenance fund that we set aside each year to take care of our current existing infrastructure. That would be very important to me and might make this exercise feel a little more worthwhile.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Any further discussion?
Counselor Kelly also has entered written comments into the minutes that will be included next week.
Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
No.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Brody?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
No.
4 yeses and 2 noes, it's adopted.
There are,
Both 7B and 7C are adopted.
Yep.
7D was added during the committee meeting and was read in full. Does anybody want to waive the reading?
I will make the motion to waive the reading and move to resolution. It was read in our committee, and a copy has been distributed to all of us, and no doubt will be part of the minutes.
moved by Councilor Gibbs and seconded by Councilor Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the item itself.
Well, I would say my big concern when I brought this up was the potential for balloon costs here with travel. And if that's being taken care of, I still have great concerns of how $20,000, especially during the time of COVID, especially at a time when we're letting people off. I think taking a look at how it's done in the future is appropriate, but that was my big concern, was the possibility of cost rising to $50,000 and having to cause a budget crunch. So my big concern is alleviated.
Any further discussion?
Well, I think my issue is it's, at some point you have to move off the dime, and both parties are saying they're going to stand their ground. And I think it's, I'm pleased with the council considering this resolution to kind of, let's just move this thing aside and move forward with the zoning board. And hopefully in some expeditious manner, they will complete the work that's been going on since January to review this project. I'm still hoping that at some point we'll have a conversation with the zoning board, once this is resolved, to try to look at, are there adjustments that need to be made in the way that, whether it's the zoning board or the planning board or some other board of the city feels they need expertise and they need to hire somebody to help them, that we have a more defined and specific policy that connects the council to that decision so we can look at the budgetary impact on the city for these decisions. And I would hope that there would be a receptivity in the zoning board as well to sit down and figure this out so that we are not going to be bumping heads down the road in some way, whether it's them or some other board. So it's, and I'll say this too, I think Mr. Nolan seems to feel that this was directed specifically at him. And this was not ever directed at Mr. Nolan. This was directed to the zoning board and the procedures and policies that were associated with this. And we're going to take this step to, let's resolve this. And I appreciate Dean's work and the work of the attorney unfortunately, I can't remember his name, but the attorney from Buffalo, to actually sit down and come up with some compromise that enables us to move in a new direction.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Brody?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
No travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business or additional councilor reports?
Yes, I have a, oh,
Mayor, we're gonna have an opportunity for the public to speak at the end of this meeting.
Yep.
Because someone spoke to me before and asked to come in, so I will let her know that she will be able
As
to.
brief as you can be is the more time we'll have for public at the end.
I do have a statement I would like to make. I've received a couple of requests from some media outlets. We've all received an anonymous email that makes some very serious accusations against our chief of police. And I'm not going to comment on anything referenced in that, especially items that are part of pending litigation. But I would like to engage in some conversation with corporate counsel regarding some of this. And so tomorrow I'd like to contact you to talk about what we've all received and what is no doubt in the public and needs to be discussed and addressed.
Any further new business or council reports? On my dad, I've already written funding for Saranac River Trail 2 into the budget that you've asked me to prepare as well. Hopefully have some details on that next week. Any other issues? At this point, we'd like to open it up for public to come and comment on any issues of mutual concern to the council. Please be mindful that we will be convening at 5:30 p.m. to attend a public hearing of great import to the citizens of our city, so please confine your comments to no more than 2 minutes. Please come forward. Come on in.
Good evening. If it may please the council and Mayor Reed, I would like to speak on behalf of the Adirondack North Country Gender Alliance's plans for a rolling pride parade on October 3rd. This is different from what we usually have planned. We usually have a big event in Trinity Park. With the pandemic this year, we cannot do that. So we have been working with the Department of Health to find a safe solution. So we have decided to go with a car parade instead. The car parade will start from Durkee Street and it will go to US Oval, where we will have a little bit of entertainment. And then simply we will disperse afterwards. We will be following the same kind of rules as with the Harborside Concert Series, where participants will either stay in their car or right next to their car the whole time. So as we will not be requiring any street closures, parking space, or any city services, we understand that we do not need a vote for council approval, but we would just like to get your support.
Certainly.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Any other individuals like to please come and address the council on any issue of mutual concern? Seeing none, would you like to come forward? Seeing none,
Rather than adjourning formally and finally, I think we're just going to push a temporary adjournment and we'll reconvene back at the 130 Arizona Avenue.
Motion for recess.
So move to recess, second by Councilor Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry that I can't attend